Call the meeting to order. All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call. Councilmember Wilbur is absent. Approval of the agenda. Is there any additions or changes to the agenda? Council? Do I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Joe,
I'll second.
second by Diane. Call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4 in favor, none against. Approval of the minutes of the November 16th, 2022 regular meeting. You all received them in your packet. Is there any questions, concerns, changes? Hearing nothing, do I have a motion to approve the minutes of the November 16th meeting?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Heidi,
I'll second.
second by Diane. Call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4 in favor, none against. This brings us to our public open forum. Is there anyone here that would like to speak to the council? Is there anyone that would like to speak to the council? Okay, come up to the microphone, state your name and address.
My name is Barb Matey, and I'm from New Munich, Minnesota.
Okay. Go ahead.
Well, I got an eviction notice for down at the lake, and I really was wondering how that all came about and how your decision was made on that.
Okay. I think you're part of the appeals that we've got later on in the agenda. Basically, the park board makes that decision and makes the recommendation
Okay.
to the mayor to sign.
I get that, and they were supposed to have a park board meeting last night, and they canceled it,
Okay.
and nobody called me.
Well, the park board wouldn't handle any of the appeals. Once it comes to the council,
So you guys are handling this now?
yes. Once the park board makes their decision and it comes to the council for ratification, then if there's any appeals to what they do, then it comes to us, and so it's strictly us
Okay.
that take care of it.
Well, they were supposed to have a meeting last night, and if Marson wouldn't have called me, I wouldn't have even known that it was canceled.
Okay?
Because Nikki was supposed to call me, and she did not.
Okay. So, is that what you wanted to speak to us about, or?
No, I want to know why I got an eviction notice and how I can appeal it.
Well, we did the letter, I think you did a letter of appeal,
I did get that,
and then you have sent a letter to us.
yes?
Right, so
Yes.
that's the process. So during the public's open forum isn't time that we get into a debate over it. I know I did answer an email for how that process works and what was stated. So at this point, it's strictly us four to make that decision. And all the contracts end as of September 30th.
I never received mine.
Well, you signed one for 2022
I did for 2022.
and 2020.
And then I did not get one for 2023.
Okay,
And I talked to Nikki, and she said they were not mailing contracts out until this was resolved.
okay,
So I didn't get a contract for 2023.
okay. But as of September 30th of 2022, you didn't have a contract.
I did.
Once September 30th came, your contract was gone.
Gone.
Everybody's is.
Okay,
Yeah.
so then how come I didn't get another one?
Usually that's a request.
Nikki, for the last 20 years that I've been camping down there, Nikki always mailed it to me, always. I never went anywhere else to get my contract. She mailed it to me.
Okay. Well, and I can't speak to that, so I'm not,
And she told me she's not sending out any contracts until this is resolved.
okay. Okay,
That's why I didn't sign a contract, because I never received it.
right. Okay. I guess I can't really speak to it, and I'm not, this isn't the position for us to get into a debate over it. She's not here to defend herself, and without us doing anything, I can't.
So, okay, when do I know if I can go back to the campground or not? Or is it resolved already that it's a done deal, I'm not going back?
Tonight, we will decide what's
Because I
happening.
have things I need to say
Okay,
about how we were treated down there.
okay. Well, it's beyond that point right now. The public open forum is strictly for comments up to 3 minutes. And after that, once we get into the regular meeting, no one's going to be able to speak. So,
You guys all got her there.
We did.
yep, yep. We all got your letter. And so we're up to speed. We've done our research. We know what's happened.
So, but you only heard one side of the story.
Well, with your appeal letters, we've heard both sides.
Okay, because there's.
And that's what we
there's
take.
more.
Well, there might be,
When-
but it
when-
should have, if there was, it should have been put in the appeal letter.
I think it was when
So-
Scott blamed me for starting that campfire.
That was in the letter.
That was in the letter?
Yes.
Yeah, that was in,
Do you know
so,
how that made me feel? That I would do something intentionally? Warren, you know me.
I know.
I would never do anything intentional. My children were there, my grandchildren. And to have
Right.
somebody accuse me of intentionally starting a fire? How can somebody even fathom that?
The only thing is he's not here to defend himself either. And we're not in a position where we can do the he said, she said, back and forth. This is.
So that should have went to the park board,
That, they should have known about that at that time too,
but I never got to go to a park board meeting.
right? Because once everybody's seasonal contract ends September 30th. And then that's when staff reviews, like I said in the email, staff reviews everybody on a yearly basis. And then that's when they have any suggestions, it goes to the park board. The park board reviews what staff has said. Then it goes, I sign whatever letters. This isn't the first time I've had to do this. I did, I think, 2 last year. 2 years ago, we did 1 or 2. So that's the process. I can't change that. So we're to the point now, tonight, later in the agenda is when we'll decide,
So
and everybody will know where they stand.
You will decide that tonight then?
Yes, so,
Okay. I
Okay.
even have letters my grandchildren wrote to you people.
yeah, that, and all of that should have been with the appeal letter, so that's nice, but sorry.
When we wrote the appeal letter, we actually went online, how to write an appeal letter. And
Mm-hmm.
they said not to send anything emotional, just stick to the point. That's why I didn't send my grandchildren's letters to you, because
Right.
we were trying to stick to the point.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Barb.
Yep.
Is there anyone else that wants to speak to the council? Call a third time. Is there anyone that wants to speak to the council? Our public open forum is now closed. We will now recess this regular meeting and go into our public hearing, our truth and taxation 2023 budget. It is our intention that everyone has the opportunity to be heard. If you wish to speak, please sign in on the sign-up sheet at the back of the room. The procedure is as follows. Presentation by staff, followed by questions of staff, then public input. Raise your hand. When recognized by the mayor, approach the podium and state your name and address for the record. State your comments and position. No one will be allowed to speak a second time until everyone has had a chance to be heard. First, we will hear questions for clarification. Second, public in favor of the proposal. Third, public speaking against the proposal. After everyone who wishes to speak has had the opportunity to be heard, the hearing will be closed. After closure of the public hearing, the council will deliberate and take action as appropriate. Members of the audience do not participate in the council's discussion unless a majority of the council concedes to hear additional information or questions. The hearing is now in session. Vicki?
So this is, as you said, the 2023 budget public hearing to give the public an opportunity to ask questions and comment on the proposed 2023 budget and levy. The budget presented tonight represents changes to the adopted preliminary budget, which has been updated. Those changes do include, we got the final numbers on the insurance, and we did get some more refined numbers on a lot of the other expenses that we had. You know, we were between $200,000 and $300,000 upside down in the general fund at the end of the preliminary budget, but since then we've been able to work on that budget, and now we have a deficit of $34,531.96. That's quite a change from the initial, but we were able to close that gap. You could make a decision tonight to make an additional cut in the budget to cover that, or the other option is, because we do have the 2 open positions that obviously won't be filled by January 1st, there's going to be savings in wages and benefits in the first part of the year that will likely close that gap on its own. So that is something you could look at. And then at the end of the year, you could not do transfers or something in order to close that. You know, if you want to do something right tonight, you can. Otherwise, it's likely it'll take care of itself with those 2 hirings that we're going to do. In this budget, the City Council asked that a levy increase be submitted to cover the increased cost. It was 6% for the Bond Fund 2022A, that's the 2nd Street and Hickman Drive project, and 3% to cover increased costs to be certified as a preliminary levy, which we did. We expected that to not increase the tax rate due to new development and valuation increases, and it did not. It resulted actually in a decrease of our tax rate from 48.846 to 46.373. I did include in your packet the 30 cities in Stearns County, and show that we fall right in the middle of all of those. And then also our history back to 2006 of our tax rate, and then also the total tax rate, which includes the county and the school and the other taxing jurisdictions. So this kind of gives you an idea of where we're falling. And we try to keep it fairly flat, and so we kind of stay the same. We're not having any big spikes, and that's what we've been able to do. The one thing that this rate was applied to all the property values and sent to property owners in the last few weeks. Some people saw some radical changes and some didn't, and that mostly is the impact of the property valuation changes. And if you recall in April when we had our board of review, they did tell us that there was some very erratic changes in the sales, which you all know, and those sales directly impact the value. So some people saw a reduction, some people saw an extreme change in their value, which resulted in quite a big tax increase. So we can't do anything about the value. That's a county assessor thing that he takes care of. And all we can do is look at our tax rate that we apply against it. So do you have any questions about the budget itself? The overall budget, revenue over expenses outside of the general fund, we do have a positive revenue over expenses. And part of that is we're collecting sales tax and putting it aside and not spending it for the the Highway 71 project. Otherwise, a lot of it's a factor of the debt service, you know, how the money comes in and sits in the bank until we have to pay it out. But overall, the budget is pretty flat this year between 2022 and 2023.
Questions? Comments? Everyone understands? One thing on the tax rate trends, if you look at it, 2006, our tax rate was really high. So you're looking at 29% higher back then than what we've what we're at now. So if there's no questions of staff, if there's anyone in the public that wants to speak in favor, against, or needs clarification on the budget. Is there anyone here that wants to speak in favor, against, or need clarification regarding the budget? Call a third time. Is there anyone here that would like to speak in favor, against, or need clarification regarding the budget? Any last minute questions from the council?
I'm glad I don't live in St. Joseph.
Okay, our public hearing is now closed. We will now reconvene our regular council meeting. Action item 7A, approve resolution 2022-92 approving the 2023 budget.
So this is the budget that we just discussed, and so this resolution actually adopts that budget for all funds. It's Resolution 2022-92, adopting the 2023 expense and revenue budgets for the City of Sauk Center.
Questions, comments? Otherwise, I'll look for a motion to approve resolution 2022-92.
Well, I guess I look,
Go ahead.
I look at, I mean, we have a deficit right now. I know we talked about the potential to close it with those positions not being filled, but at that meeting when we adopted our 9% levy, we made sure we got it to zero. I would think that we have that conversation today about getting that gap closed. I know obviously we had a little bit of a surprise there with the insurance rates and everything pushing up that, you know, contributed a big part to this negative 34% or negative 34,000. So I mean, we obviously locked ourselves into that 9% at that point, not giving ourselves any wiggle room. So, I mean, I'm looking at that. If we did it at that point, we having that discussion right now where we'd be looking to cut potentially. And one area I look at is I know we could close that gap by not filling these positions, but we're adding staff in the PD for $86,000 a year. That's going to be an ongoing expense that is recurring. That's going to deal with wage inflation, all those things that I think we need to have a serious conversation of whether or not we're going to be comfortable adding that position versus just, you know, we hacked from a lot of areas to keep that in there. So I think we need to debate whether that's a need for 2023 or not.
Okay. Any other comments?
So your question, Joe, is whether we continue in pursuing that additional police officer?
At this point, potentially for 2023, yes.
Okay. One of the things that I think is a possibility, which is, your point is well taken. One of the things is if it comes to, if we got any capital improvements or expenditures on equipment or anything like that, we could probably just not buy it for 1 year. So that might be another avenue.
Well, those are one-time expenses. We cut a lot of those out of the budget for 2023 already.
Right.
Ones that we had budgeted for 2022 and, you know, building maintenance that we cut the budget on that, you know, we don't fix those things. I mean, end up costing us more in the long run.
Right.
So
Yeah.
maybe that's where we got to debate where the best value is.
When it comes to public safety, I just have a hard time cutting, especially when everybody's in that need, but
Well,
it's, you know, that's not my total decision.
Well, I believe, you know, we need a strong public safety. I mean, our fire, our ambulance, our PD are very needed, and I appreciate everything they do. But again, we need to look at the long term, and I know this position, a lot of it was talked about as a school resource officer, you know, for a lot of those hours. So is it something that we can say, hey, you know, we locked ourselves in at 9% in 2023, and we're putting, you know, basically was 4% of our levy into that position.
Right.
That says, hey, you know, yeah, we see the need, but with what we did for the budget and what we adopted, we made a mistake probably in September not going for a higher amount.
Anyone else have any comments? I know that the officer at the school, I think right now the county's covering that for half the year. if we could probably still, maybe halfway through the year, if we see it come in, maybe we come across some money. If we do eliminate it now, we could always put it back in halfway through for next school year.
Well, unless we talk about, well, maybe it's a conversation we have with PD of saying, hey, you know, they're covered for the remainder of this school year, that maybe we're not looking at 86,000, it's 43,000 because we started in
Right.
second half of the year.
We'd start.
So, I mean,
those.
and that's a conversation, maybe that's just the operational side of things, but
Right.
things to consider there.
That's where I'm kind of feeling is where it comes down when we have been upside down in years past, trying to close that gap, is approving it for now, but then when it comes time to, you know, replacing any of those big expenditures or capital improvement projects, then evaluating it when they come to the table and deciding if that is necessary at that point. And maybe, because I don't believe we have gone out yet for the police officer position, have we?
No.
No.
So without actually moving forward on that plan yet, that kind of gets put in the same basket, I would say, as making that decision as it happens, but approving this for now, seeing where we end up within a few months if we haven't filled that position. What does the projected budget look like? You're correct that, you know, next year it would be an additional expenditure, but we might not have other expenditures in other areas that we can balance that out in the long term, or at least for next year. Having that position, I believe, helps us with the budget so that we know our hard and fast, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, and gives us the wiggle room for projecting years down the road and what we can afford and what we can't in those additional expenses within each department. But when it comes to time, that's where we really need to, I don't want to say lay the hammer down, but, you know, kind of be a little bit.
And basically, you know, like you stated, we've done this, we've had a shortfall before, and then if we didn't overcome the gap is because the council voted to just go ahead and
Yeah.
purchase it anyway, where now every time a request comes in throughout the year, we're gonna have to be reminded or remember that we have that shortfall. And then it's gonna be up to us five, when Shallon's here, to decide if we're gonna make up that 34,000 then. Or is this something you wanna make it zero tonight?
I mean, I would think that'd be a consideration if we did it at the preliminary, that we made sure we got to zero, and we hadn't done that in the past, you know, 3 budget hearings either. So I mean,
Right.
for adopting the final budget, I mean, why not do it now too?
Okay.
I mean, I know you talk about, well, not having other expenditures, but we cut most of those purchases. I mean, I don't know that there's many purchases in the budget.
Yeah, there's a few in there, if I can't off the top of my head think of them right now, but there's a few budget items in there.
I believe if we didn't remove it, and I can't speak for certain right now, looking through the several pages, but I believe we had 25,000 in 2 different funds for a vehicle, for a truck for the park department. Ben, do you recall if that's correct?
We cut that.
Yeah.
And I missed the budget meeting, I was
Oh.
gone.
Yeah, there's a
That was cut.
$30,000 F-250 from the parks that was cut.
Mm-hmm.
And there's the 100,000 for the 1-ton and plow, I believe that was cut, and
That was cut, yeah,
then the cabins we cut, which made sense.
right.
So,
Well, you want to make a motion that we, or how do you want to work this?
well, I guess I'm looking for, I guess I
I-
gave my
you
thoughts,
know,
and I guess I was,
we-
you know,
we
just
can-
starting a conversation to see
No,
what everyone
okay,
else, you
that's
know,
fine.
what they wanted to put in for input here too, to see if there's
Right.
some type of decision or
Yeah,
thought process of where we'd want to go.
right. As much as I hate to, I can see cutting that out, and then that way we'd actually be the other way around. If you take that 86,000 out of there,
And then we can look at some of those maybe purchases we cut that are maybe needed too to put back in there.
right,
You know, and that's where I was looking. So I was looking at that, I mean, that full-time position, you know, if that came out, we're 51,000 positive. Put that F-250 back in there that was budgeted in 2022, which we didn't purchase because couldn't find the truck. And then that roof repair where we've got building issues, it was a $5,000 cut from the street department that, I mean, I don't want leaky roofs in our buildings and on this, you know, city property having issues.
Right.
You know, so I mean, you know, it makes sense to spend that money. If we did those, took that out, put those two things in, we got a $16,000 surplus at the end. So something I was looking at, I know, again, I hate to cut public safety. I value our PD and they do a great job. We've got a great department, but sometimes we need to make these tough decisions in the position we're in. And like I said, you know I broached that subject of a 13% levy because that position represented 4% and we decided not to. And now here we are having this tough discussion and not putting in something that is probably needed, but we may have to wait a year in the budget.
Well, I can go along with the idea of cutting that position for right now, so we're the other way around on the budget. But as far as stating tonight that we're gonna fix a roof and put money back into the truck, I'm not for that. Let's see what else is gonna happen through the year before we just
So go to the surplus and then just
go to the surplus and
see
then
what we
if it
decide
comes
throughout
to
the year.
point, because we don't know what else might happen throughout the year. You know,
I can appreciate that.
something breaks before we, you know, I don't want to earmark a truck or,
Right.
and even with the roof, we don't know if it's going to be more or less, but we earmarked this, well, now all of a sudden it costs 3 times more than what we thought it was going to. Now we're backwards again. So I don't want to plug in money into spots without truly knowing what it's going to be
Right.
at this point. But if flipping the budget so we have a surplus rather than,
So what you're saying then is that scenario, we get that surplus, they go to bids and it comes in at 15,000, we know where it's at, then we decide whether or not we want to do it? Is that
Right.
kind of what you're suggesting? Okay.
yes.
I can go along with that.
So, yeah, it's just, you know, we cut the budget, we go to the surplus. But then we got that extra. Yes, Vicki?
Do you want some input from Brian before you
Sure,
make a cut to his
absolutely.
department?
Absolutely.
Well, Vicki, do you have the budget for the amount of overtime that we did for full-time?
And that's a consideration that
Huh?
that's a very good point to raise right away.
Because we're gonna see a drastic increase in the full-time overtime because we can't find part-time to work. And our full-time guys, we're gonna have to start forcing them to, you're gonna work. Because we have no part-time. The part-time budget will be dropped, but your full-time officers that we have working, you're gonna, the budget's gonna increase.
It was, as of October 31st, we'd spent just shy of 25,000 on overtime for the full-time officers.
And then what was the part-time?
And then part-time, we had 9,000.
Yeah. So I can, there'll definitely increase in that.
So basically, we're not going to be saving any money at all if we do that. In a roundabout way, by doing what we're talking about, we're not going to save any money. We're going to be backwards anyway.
Not only money, but keeping the personnel that we do have, because we're not overworking them and,
Exactly. Morale, keeping the morale
Yeah.
of officers that we've had here for all the years. You don't find many small departments that have had a nucleus that we've had.
right?
To
Right.
keep them. And right now, though, to keep an officer, everyone is cutting in the throat and stealing officers from everyone because you're gonna see a drastic increase in what the wages you're gonna be paying. I guarantee that's gonna happen. I'm just throwing stuff out there. I think it's gonna be, you know, you're gonna see a lot of increase in that stuff. You know, if you did go with a full-time position, maybe we could start that, position later, you know, in April or move it back to try to take off the, top end of that a little bit. We'll make it work, whatever way you guys wanna go. I understand the budget's budget, so
Yeah.
I'm totally with that, but I'm just saying, from our perspective, I think the morale go down because we'll see officers that have been here a long time and are trying to cover. Now we're gonna start trying to fill in spots because of the part-time situation, we've tried to fill part-time, we just can't keep them, and I think as soon as we do find one, we're losing them to the department that'll take it full-time and offer the kind of money they are right now. So, that's the issues.
One of the things, Subin, that he mentioned is next year is union negotiations again.
Yeah.
And if we go into union negotiations with morale being down or whatever because of the cut, I can see that coming back to
I can tell you right
get
now,
us.
when we go to the negotiations, the percentages they're gonna be asking for are gonna be way high. So
Way high.
Be ready for it.
The other thing too, I think that should be taken into consideration is when people in our community understand that public safety is coming out of their pocket, that we're paying for the level of law enforcement officers that we have, and you have the trust and you have the commitment from our officers, that I think citizens are more willing to pay the extra money in taxes to confirm or to affirm that they are getting that
Exactly.
quality.
I think it means so much that our citizens are comfortable with our officers, they gotta get to know them so well. I think, like you say, our longevity that we've had with our officers, you know, that means a lot. And say, God, I can just go talk to Joe or talk to Dusty and you know, talk to these other guys, I know. It means a lot if we start losing these guys that have
Yeah.
made the department what it is over the years. You know, it's not just me, it's the whole nucleus of, we have a good group, so. I know you're.
It's
Yeah,
all,
what-
it's, you know, and it's all in the discussion base right now, but,
That's why I threw that full-time position in there, because if we could find part-timers that would work, and that want to be caught, no one wants to be caught.
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
yeah,
And the ones that do, they're latching onto the full-time positions, and
right.
so we're putting money into that part-time, and getting them trained, get all the equipment, and it's gone. It's like,
Yeah.
Okay,
What would you anticipate that overtime roughly looking like if you had to make that work? Like how much, I mean, 24,000, yeah, if hypothetically we didn't fill that position, 24,000 through October this year, but what would you foresee that potentially looking like? Is that a $40,000? It's kind of like a 40, 50,
That's another 40,
another 40? Or just 40 total for the year?
yeah.
So 20,000 more.
But
That's for a full year.
But risking whether or not somebody wants to stay committed and work those overtime hours at the pay they are for the year, you know?
No, I just want clarification on the dollars and stuff there. Now, again, I'm open to, you know, anything, like if we want to pare back and go start later to balance that budget and say, hey, this is a position we'll fill later in the year. If that works on your guys' end and say, hey, you know, it's going to be 40, you know, half a year, it's 43, and now we're balanced.
right,
Yeah.
yeah.
You know, we fill in, you know, again, it's just,
And I know I feel guilty too if Ben gets, you know, can't buy equipment, I know he gets equipment too, and stuff.
Well, and it does, but you know, and maybe I've been part of the problem, but the last few years, it's kind of like, well, somebody came in and asked for it. We always gave it to
I
them.
think we've all been
And
there.
now this year, we've kind of, no, wait a minute, we're done with that. But like I agree with Heidi, people, I think, will pay for taxes for police, fire, ambulance. And that is the fluff, like okay, let's have an extra park, which means an extra how many hours, you know, that's the stuff that people say, wait a minute, what are you wasting my money for? So,
yeah. I agree. I mean, I think the two biggest things you need for a strong community are, you know, strong public safety and good schools. That's why
Yeah.
we're passing the levies on the schools side of it, and that's why,
right,
you know, we have a good department. That's what we need for the community. But again, we got to manage our budgets, and, you know, we adopted 9%, when knowing 6% was going strictly for a bond for that street. I mean,
Yeah.
again,
Yeah.
we probably aired in September, but it's where we're at now. So,
right.
you know, maybe it's a partial year.
What worries me, I know there's feelers coming in, they're behind me, it's like a ghost, they're coming in, you know, Dusty, we could pay this to be our investigator, you know, Joe, he could be our sergeant.
Well, there's headhunters out there.
Darn it, you know, I know that's happening, there's a lot of cutthroat going out there right now, and gosh, I just hate to lose our guys, but
Well,
morale up, but.
I
But
think,
like I say, we'll be glad to work with you guys if you wanna, if we do get that, to start it later, to try to, take the top end off of that, but.
even if we can get it to where at the next school year, when that starts, have someone in place, then that gets us through halfway through the year.
Well, and,
You know.
if we start it more that May, June, and we know there's the other position we need to fill, that isn't being filled at the wages budgeted, we'll
Because
have
even
that
if
gap
we,
closed.
even if
It's
we
just an
start the
understanding where we're at.
position, even if we start the position now, we know the county's gonna be sitting in there until the end of the school year anyway, because they got grant money.
Yeah.
They're not gonna go away just because we hire somebody in February. So I would think that halfway through the year, and then we can work with Brian on
Yeah.
that, and
Well, and then we know what we need to do for the budget for next year, because we know that
Yep.
position's there, and we've
Right.
corrected some of these other things, and
so,
Between me and you, the deputy that is there in the school, he's doing a great job, but I like to see our guys there. We are there a lot and take care of, everything there, but seeing a Stearns County squad parked in front of the school, it's like, why does Stearns County have to handle it?
right,
It'd be nice to
Yeah.
get our own,
Yeah.
our own faces in there and our own squads parked in front of the school.
Right. So,
So,
okay, thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
What's the council's wishes?
so do we adopt the budget as it's presented, knowing that's not gonna be filled, or do we say, pare that wage back and then adopt it that way?
Suggestion, Vicky? Do we just adopt it the way it is, and leave that as a side note?
I think if you adopt it the way that it is, then when it comes to you to actually hire, you know that
Just start it,
you just have the start date.
Okay.
I'll make the motion, chief.
Okay, we have a motion by Diane to approve resolution 2022-92. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Joe. Any other discussion? Call a question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4 in favor, none against. 7B, approve resolution 2022-93, approving 2023 levy.
As you said, this is adopting the property tax levy. The general fund is $1,570,571, which is 68.9%. The special revenue fund's $115,000, which is 5%. And the debt service, $595,000, which is 26.1%. So, looks a little different what I said than is your packet, because the CIP repayment fund is actually debt service in a special revenue. So the total is $2,280,571.
Okay, comments? Otherwise, I'm looking for a motion to approve resolution 2022-93.
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion by Joe,
I'll second.
second by Diane. Any other comments? Call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4 in favor, none against. 7C, approve resolution 2022-94, approving interfund transfers.
Each year, at the end of the year, we approve transfers between funds. The transfers this year are from the fire department share of the city hall bond to the bond fund. We have the stormwater fees that go to the bond fund. That was for the 2012 project. We have future equipment purchase that go to the sinking fund. And then current year purchases from the sinking fund to the general fund. So they're kind of going back and forth because they're indifferent. The future equipment purchase to the sinking fund is actually, we're putting that money aside because it's not coming, the street sweeper's not gonna be here till next year. So we have to move the money that we had, or put money in there for next year. And the opposite one is current year purchase from the sinking fund to the general fund. That was the balance of the storm shelter in the campground. We had that money put aside, and you bring it back into the general fund now because we've paid that off. The next one I'm gonna skip over for now, and then the other one is apartment complex abatement to the EDA fund. You know, we had an EDA contract with the Main Street Apartments. Each year, the city share of those taxes go back to the EDA specifically because they funded the upfront costs for the utilities and the land. There's TIF admin funds to the EDA for TIF administration. There's transfer of funds from the hospital fund. This was the balance of the industrial park project. There was some dollars in the hospital interest from our loan to the hospital. And then, of course, there was TIF funds that go to the South Industrial Park project. So kind of moving the money around between funds. The one thing, another one too, is the ice resurfacer. We were supposed to get it last year. It finally came this year. It's finally in service in the arena. So we have the option, of course, we have to pay for it. So the arena does not have the funds for that. And so the general fund, at the end of the year, has to kind of like borrow that money or lend that money to the arena fund. The other option that we have is, we had put money aside from the campground profits in the sinking fund. And some people would argue that the arena is part of parks and the campground's part of parks. So could those excess revenues from the campground fund that ice resurfacer? That's between the general fund and the arena fund. So that's one thing that is a part of this. That's an idea that you can look at. If you don't want to do that, that's fine, but that is a way to help the arena fund from the campground.
Questions? Comments? Otherwise, do I have a motion to approve Resolution 2022-94?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Diane, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Heidi. Any last comments? Call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4 in favor, none against. 7D, approve Resolution 2022-95 designating polling place.
So Minnesota statutes require that the city council by ordinance or resolution designate polling places for the upcoming year. This prevents changes to polling places less than 90 days prior to an election. There's no scheduled elections for next year, but you never know, there could be a special election. So as such, this resolution designates Sauk Center City Hall as the official polling place for any special or regular election for 2023. This is the city resolution. The school also adopted a resolution making Sauk Center City Hall the polling place for the entire school district as well. If you recall, we had the school board election here, the bond referendum. So in the future, their elections will all be here as well, unless they change that. So Resolution 2022-95 designating the polling place.
Questions, concerns? Do I have a motion to approve Resolution 2022-95?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Joel,
Second.
second by Heidi. Call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4 in favor, none against. 7E, approve Resolution 2022-96, amending policy on non-union contributions to healthcare savings plan.
So currently, all the city employees contribute to a healthcare savings plan. The funds are available for the employees' use post-employment. So this is after you leave employment with the city for medical expenses. The non-union group has 4 tiers with varying percentages of contribution. This attached resolution collapses everything into one. All non-union will contribute 2% of his or her wages and 100% of his or her payout of sick leave and/or vacation when they leave employment. So the city does not contribute to this plan. This is an employee-only plan. All contributions are from payroll deductions. The union groups are not changing at this time. They are set by their labor agreement that's currently in effect. So what we're looking to do tonight is just to approve Resolution 2022-96, amending the healthcare savings plan for non-union employees.
Questions?
Is this basically just to simplify the books, or what was the,
They had non-union, there was non-union exempt employees had 1%, or had 2%, 100% contribution, and then exempt employees less than 10 years had a different one, and non-union, it had to do with how long you'd been here and whether you were exempt or not. And it was, everybody at this point is all like at the same rate, so now's the time to change it
Okay.
for anybody in the future, because everybody's elevated up to that number.
Makes sense.
And yes, it is to make it much easier.
Any other questions? Do I have a motion to approve Resolution 2022-96?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Diane,
I'll second.
second by Joel. Call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4 in favor, none against. 7F, approve appointment of seasonal employee.
So the city has been advertising for employment at the arena and the outdoor rink and other seasonal positions, and we do have a recommendation tonight for work at the Civic Arena, and that is for Clint Althouse is his name, and he will be ready to start almost immediately, and the wages are according to the adopted pay scale. which would be $15 an hour. So we're looking to approve the appointment of Clint Althouse as a seasonal employee at the Civic Arena effective immediately.
Comments, questions? Do I have a motion to approve the appointment?
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion by Heidi, second by Diane. Call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
All right.
Opposed? Motion carries 4 in favor, none against. 8, unfinished business, City Hall front steps.
I think we don't really have anything new with that. You guys gave us some input at the last meeting, and it's just going to ride on there. I did have one phone call that, from some residents that are going to pay the costs of relocating the flagpole, which is very good.
Okay.
So,
All right. New business, 9A, notice of liquor license revocation.
so notice has been sent to the historic Broken Barstool, formerly the Corner Bar, that due to expiration of insurance, that the city council will have to consider revocation of their license. They've been invited to come to the next city council meeting, which you will be considering it at that time. So we'll see if we can get that put together before, if he gets that paid and everything done before then. In the past, when we've had to do this, it usually comes in that day.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Right. So, okay, any questions about that? 9B, seasonal camper appeals of non-approval of rental agreement.
The park board at a prior meeting discussed the seasonal camper agreement for the 2023 season. Part of the discussion included the decision not to extend invitations to 2 seasonal campers to camp for the 2023 season due to controversies that have arisen. This goes back many years according to the past 3 campground managers. Unfortunately, the campers generally want the city to settle issues that arise amongst themselves and not confront each other personally, which then involves the city and its staff. In addition, adherence to the rules and terms of the seasonal camper agreement also come into play. The seasonal camper agreement is attached. Letters were sent to the campers notifying them of the decision not to offer them a contract for the 2023 season. Both campers have appealed the decision of the board. Their appeal letters were submitted to the council previously.
Okay. You all got a copy of the seasonal camping agreement. It's all highlighted. It hasn't changed in the last few years, other than the fee. The park board acted, they're the ones that put these rules in place in this contract. Council make sure that we approve it. So basically, everything the park board did. When it comes to the people, staff review each of the seasonal camper contracts. And if there's an issue, and not just in 1 year, it could be numerous years that have just added up. Like Ben has stated, that even talking to previous campground managers, we've had issues. So basically tonight, and we've got their letter of appeals, is for us to sort out whether or not we're going to uphold the park board's decision or if we're going the other way. This is not a debatable thing at this point. It's our decision to make. Does anybody on the council have any questions about how the decision was made?
I guess what was just, I mean, you represent the council on the park board, right?
Shallon does.
Shallon, okay, so he's not going
Shallon
to give you that
does,
perspective.
but we look back at the park board, and they passed it unanimous. That both of them.
I was just wondering if he had any comments as the rep there to
No,
add, but
I spoke to Shallon this morning when he called and said he had the flu, but he stated that in his opinion, the rules are the rules, and that's where he stood.
Mhm.
So that's between him and I, so you can take it for what you want, but otherwise, what is the council's wishes? my personal opinion is pretty black and white. We got staff that has recommended it, we got a park board that's upholding the rules and gave us a recommendation. And the letters of appeal that we got were a lot of, he did this and she did this and we don't like this person or they said that and whatever, and to me, that's not what you base a decision on. So, to me, we uphold it. Like I stated before in the public open forum, this isn't the first camper in the last 6-7 years that is not, because they have their site from May 1 to September 30th. After that, and it's up to us to put whoever we want in those spots. They don't have any right or legality to say that their spot and they can never be removed.
I have a question, Ben. Do we have a lot of people standing in line to get into the campground, or?
There is a long wait list to get into the seasonal positions, yes.
Okay, thank you.
I think at the last, it was right around 80 seasonals
That
that
answers
want to
my
get
question.
into our spots.
Thank you.
That shouldn't be part of the reasoning.
No.
I guess, looking at the appeals letters as I read through them and looking at the agreement, I mean, they did point out specific points of where they acknowledged that they were in violation of the agreement in certain instances there. So, I mean, obviously, whether it was written or stated with a rationale, I mean, they're aware of what it could have been. So, and again, based on the recommendations that were provided from the park board, who heard it directly, and again, contracts expire, we can decide who we want to do business with in terms of offering them contracts. So, I mean, I would think we'd just, uphold that decision.
And the contract explicitly states this agreement may be terminated at any time by the campground for any reason, including, and it goes on to list, determined to be detrimental to the proper management of the campground. So if those specific things have been listed, laid out for the park board to make the decision that they did unanimously, then I don't see reason to not uphold their decision.
And the one thing is the staff meets, this isn't just a one person coming into the park board saying, I don't like this person, get rid of them. This is staff as a whole meeting and making that recommendation to the park board. So it's very hard to argue with your own staff. Not that many people can have a problem with one camper or something, and unless there's a reason. So what's the council's wishes?
I'm going to make a motion, if we need to uphold the decision to terminate the contracts for the 2 campsites that have appealed.
Okay,
I guess I would just point to clarification, we're not really terminating, we're just not offering.
we're just not offering, because their contract ended
expired.
September 30th.
Yeah, so
We're just not
offering them.
them
Okay.
a contract for
Okay.
next year.
Do you want me to amend that motion?
If you would, please.
I will make the motion to not offer a 2023 contract with the 2 campsites that have appealed the park board's decision.
Okay? We have a motion by Heidi. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Joe. Any other comments or questions? Call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
All right.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4 in favor, none against. Then move on to our consent agenda. We have schedule of claims, unpaid claims of $228,236.72 for a total of the same amount. We have resolution number 2022-97, accepting contributions of $122.75 from the men's card playing group to be allocated to the senior center. We have $3,000 to be allocated to the police department from Walmart, $100 from Jeanette and Vern Pfeffer to allocated to the police department, $1,000 from Harvest Outreach Incorporated to be allocated to the fire department, and 2 blankets from Great River Federal Credit Union to be allocated to the ambulance department. And on behalf of the city and the council, I want to thank those groups and people for their donation. We have gambling application for exempt permit request from Sauk Center Lions Club for a raffle on February 22nd, 2023 at the Sauk Center American Legion. Is there any questions about the consent calendar? Do I have a motion to approve the consent calendar as presented?
Second.
Okay, motion by Heidi,
I'll second.
second by Diane.
Thank you.
Call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4 in favor, none against. Informational items, we got the Spectrum lineup changes again. Seems like to be just about every meeting. So there's no questions about that. That brings us to the end of our agenda. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion by Heidi. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Diane. Call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4 in favor, none against. Meeting adjourned.